Okay, these do work, although we probably don't need them. We've got quite a small, select gathering. So thank you for coming to this session, the Wiley Spotlight session. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Elizabeth Walker. I'm a senior commissioning editor at Wiley, and I'm responsible for our education, psychology and humanities programs in the UK and Europe. And as you probably gather, Wiley is the publisher of the BERA journals, so I work with BERA on the British Educational Research Journal, the British Journal of Educational Technology and Review of Education. What I'd like to talk to you about today is publishing with impact. It's not a presentation about how to get your article published in a high-impact journal, so just so that we're clear about that from the outset. It's about how to draw attention to your article once it's been published. So clearly, people can't cite your article if they're not aware of it. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that we're doing as publishers to support authors, and some of the things that you can do yourself as an author to improve your chances of your work being read and cited once it's actually been published. So I'm going to use some Wiley examples because that's what I'm most familiar with. And I hope, of course, that you'd want to publish in Wiley journals. But, you know, this isn't all about Wiley. This is about you and enhancing your work as authors. So I hope that you'll find the tips useful, even if you choose to publish elsewhere. So why is the discoverability of research articles so important? Well, journals publish cutting-edge research. They enhance our knowledge on important issues such as climate change, healthcare, and obviously education. And the basic reasons for publishing in a journal are still very much the same as they've always been. First of all, registration, to establish the ownership of your idea, discovery, or form of words. Validation, to have the quality of your research validated by your peers and acknowledged through publication. Dissemination, to share your work and let people know what you've done. And of course, archiving, to provide a permanent record of your work. However, academic publishing is an ever-changing environment. In fact, global scientific output has been doubling every 9 years, so there's more content out there than ever before, and I'm sure you've had the experience yourselves where you find that there's so much research available, you know, what's relevant, where do you start, really? And less than 1% of the world's data is analysed. So that's why the discoverability of research articles is so important. As readership is increasingly moving online, this doesn't mean that it's inherently more discoverable. So what I hope that you'll be able to take away from this session is a variety of tips or actions that you'll be able to use going forward and reap the benefits of in terms of promoting your own research. And these all involve embracing the digital environment. So we're going to look at search engine optimization, what it is and why does it matter, and some top tips. How to use social media to your advantage. What are altmetrics and what can you learn from them? And how to add value to your article by linking to data and multimedia files. So first of all, a little background on search engine optimization, or SEO. The vast majority of users find articles online, as you probably know, through using a search engine such as Google Scholar to look for the papers that may be of interest to them. So I did a quick test here. I searched for papers on mobile learning and student performance, and this paper here from BJET, that's the British Journal of Educational Technology, was one of the top results. So the good news is that it's worth optimizing your article. It will turn up as one of the top results if you follow the tips. I mean, how often do you scroll through the Google search results beyond the first page? I certainly don't do that very often, if I'm being honest. So using search engine optimization is important because it can leverage a paper so that it has better odds of being at the top of search results and therefore better odds of being read and ultimately cited. So isn't that the journal or publisher's job, you might say? Well, yes and no. Journals and publishers need to make sure they do everything they can to optimize our online platforms so that search engines can easily crawl and index the content. and publishers certainly need to actively promote journals and featured content in a crowded online space. However, they do not have ultimate control over the discoverability of content at the article level. The authors do. And just to give you another reason why this is even more important, currently more than 50% of traffic to Wiley Online Library comes directly from search engines. So search engines use algorithms to index articles and look first at the title, abstract, and keywords. So that's another reason why you really need to be thinking about this when you're writing your articles. So here are some top tips for making your article more discoverable. First of all, make sure you have an SEO-friendly title. It needs to be descriptive and incorporate a key phrase related to your topic. Don't try to be too clever. It's quite tempting to do that, a little pun or a clever allusion. That might pop out from a table of contents list on your favorite journal if that's something that you're already browsing, but it's much less likely to be found by someone who's actually just doing a general search on the internet. And perhaps some of you have seen the recent research published in Nature showing that articles with shorter titles tended to receive a higher number of citations. So that might be something to think about too. Secondly, be careful when you're writing the abstract for your paper. Again, think of keywords and phrases that someone interested in your research might type into a search engine. Repeat them several times if you can, but do it in a contextual way. Don't overdo it or try to sound clever because you'll be too unnatural then. Thirdly, provide keywords, as these are also used by abstracting and indexing services. Consider looking up specific keywords on Google Trends or the Google AdWords Keywords tool to find out which search terms are popular. So I thought I'd provide you with an example of a well-optimized abstract with carefully selected keywords, and I've highlighted some of those here, which have been repeated appropriately throughout the abstract. So that just gives you an example of somebody who's done the job well. So continuing with the tips, you also need to stay consistent and refer to authors' names and initials consistently throughout the paper and in the same way that they've been referred to in past online publications. Use headings for the various sections of your article, incorporating keywords where appropriate, as these tip off search engines to the structure and content of your article. And don't forget to cite your own or your co-author's previous publications. Cite your previous publications' work as appropriate, because this factors into how search engines rank content and future work. Self-citations do count, but only where they're appropriate. So moving on, once your article has been published, there are still a few more steps to take to ensure your article is discoverable and visible. The best way to do this is to inform everyone in your academic and social networks about it. The volume of inbound links also plays a factor in search engine rankings. So Wiley offers the chance to authors to nominate 10 people to receive unlimited free access to your published article, and I'm sure that many other publishers offer a similar service. So use this service and identify the people working on similar areas, as they're more likely to cite your work in the future. So on this slide, I've included a list of platforms you might like to consider, for example, LinkedIn and Facebook. But for more tips on how to use social media for sharing your work, then I would really recommend that you look at our Wiley Exchanges blog. So you can Google that, and it should come up high on the list of results. It should be fairly well optimized. But one of the things I wanted to draw attention to was the example that you can see on the bottom of the slide, which was written by some marketing colleagues at Wiley for how to promote your work on Facebook. Whether you love it or hate it, I think Facebook does represent a real opportunity for authors to promote their work. And what we've done on this next slide is pull out some of the tips for maximizing that potential. And of course, many of these tips would apply to other social media platforms too. So firstly, decide whether you will post from a personal Facebook account or whether you'll create a separate author page. There are several reasons why we recommend creating an author page. First of all, it allows you to create a separate presence so you can avoid spamming your family and friends with constant promotion of academic work. And it also means that you won't accidentally share your cat video with a professional audience. An author page will also give you access to analytics that personal profiles don't offer. It will also allow you to have an unlimited friend count and the ability to advertise. However, a separate page isn't for everyone. It does take time and resources to maintain, and Facebook's algorithm typically limits the number of news feeds your posts show up in. So in order to really get your content noticed, you'll need to establish a fairly large fan base and support your page with advertising. So if you choose not to create a separate page and you'd like to use your personal page to promote your work, which most people do, you can manage the privacy settings for each post and allow Facebook users to subscribe to your page rather than becoming friends, which means they won't see all of that personal detail. Secondly, it's important that you present yourself visually. Facebook gives you the option to add both a profile photo and cover photo, so use it. Don't let your page sit blank. Choose an image of yourself or one that represents the research you're doing, and make sure your brand and personality shine through. You'll also need to think about your author voice and how you're going to speak to your fans. Next, create a content schedule. Map out a plan for your content. Determine how often you're going to talk to your fans and what you're going to say to them. Wherever possible, your post should contain interesting and engaging images and videos, perhaps. These attract attention and draw in readers. So once you decide on a schedule that's manageable for you, try to stick to it. Consistency is really important. And finally, don't forget to monitor your page so that you can respond to any queries or comments left on your page. And ideally, you should aim to respond within 24 hours if you can. Finally, build your network. Think about joining Facebook groups. They're a great way to engage in discussions with those who have similar interests to yours and with influencers in your particular research community. Being active in these groups will drive people to your Facebook page. Remember, though, to be genuine and helpful. Although you want to promote your work, you don't want it to look like that's the only reason you've joined the group. And a more general point, perhaps. If you build it, they won't necessarily come. So it's true with Facebook as with any other web page. You need to make sure you're actively promoting your page to bring in new fans. Cross-promote your Facebook page through any of your other social media accounts, such as LinkedIn or Twitter. Ask your network to promote the page. Perhaps add a link to the page on your business cards, or even share it in a blog. So, sticking with the theme of social media, Altmetric, that's alternative metrics, track data derived from online activity and discussions about individual scholarly papers from social media sources such as Twitter and Facebook, the mainstream media, online reference managers such as Mendeley and SiteYouLike, and policy documents. Many publishers, including Wiley, but I'm sure many of the others do too, now include an Altmetric score within the online version of their articles, which is updated more or less in real time. Clicking on the logo, so that's the coloured rings on the left-hand side of the slide at the top there, will bring up more detail about how the score for that article has been derived. Remember, the Altmetric score isn't an end in itself. It's a way of attracting attention. It's not the score that really actually matters or who's measuring it. It's the engagement with the article that matters and which will ultimately lead to citations. In a Wiley author survey conducted in 2014, 87% of respondents indicated they would use altmetrics to gauge the popularity of an article, and 77% said they would use altmetrics to discover and network with other researchers. And that's really where altmetrics comes into its own. So how is this information actually helpful for you as an author? Well, first of all, you can find out where people are interested in your research. So you can see the map on the right-hand side of the slide there. That gives you a breakdown of the interest by geography that your article is attracting. Secondly, you can see who's talking about your work and who is following them, And in that way, you can see who are the most influential people interested in your work. You can then follow them back, perhaps, as they may introduce you to other people who share your interests. So I also wanted to take this opportunity to introduce you or highlight 2 further tools which can enhance the visibility of your research articles. And the first of these is Kudos. So to give you an idea of Kudos, if you haven't heard of this before, as of this month, September, over 21,000 Wiley authors have registered with the service to claim ownership of nearly 20,000 articles. And Wiley isn't the only publisher to partner with Kudos. So Kudos provides authors with a range of free tools to help you explain your article. You can add descriptions and highlight key features. There's no need here to repeat carefully selected keywords. These are simple summaries that anyone would understand, for instance, a simple blog post about your article. Some journals ask you to provide key points for policymakers, for example, and you could think of the Kudos enrichment in this same way. You can also add links to related resources, and it will also help you share articles either via email or by social media. And it will then give you Altmetric details as well as academic citations and usage data where that's available. You may also be aware of ORCID. ORCID provides a unique and persistent personal identifier that connects authors to their research activities. Authors can use their ORCID ID across grant applications, published articles, and datasets. The benefits to authors are that it clearly links professional activities back to an individual author and thereby increases the discoverability of your work. For instance, you might share a surname, Thompson, for example, or an initial with many other researchers, but the ORCID ID is unique to you. So I'm going to move on now to looking at how you can add value to draw in readers and citers. So first of all, we looked at how you can help people find your work. Now we're looking at how you can add value to your article. And this is particularly relevant in a digital world. Traditionally, where there was any extra data, it was published as supporting information, not perhaps as part of the article itself, and it hadn't necessarily been subject to peer review. It was more peripheral to the publication rather than being core. And we're now in a world where different versions of your paper might be available online in different places. So if you want citations to be counted consistently, you ideally need to keep driving readers back to the official version of the journal. Going forwards, we envisage a world where different types of files can be added to the published article to add value for different types of readers. For example, to help researchers build on your work, datasets and code can be added, either attached to the article itself or in open access databases with links to and from the article itself. Making your dataset or extracts from it available can increase citations of both the data and the article analysing it, and we're developing processes to streamline this for authors. Articles can also be used in teaching, and to support that, figures can now often be downloaded separately in high resolution or as ready-made PowerPoint slides. Some journals also publish teaching and learning guides alongside articles. These are free to download, and some include ideas for how to use the article for teaching, further reading for students, and sample questions. And finally, multimedia files can be added, such as video abstracts, which can help explain your work to draw in non-experts. Video abstracts give you an opportunity to enhance the reader's understanding. And actually, they're very easy to create. You can create your own by following guidelines on the Wiley Exchange's blog. We offer a step-by-step process. Some journals even have their own YouTube channel for video abstracts. If, however, you don't like the idea of actually being filmed, some people use slideshows instead, and that's perfectly acceptable. So I hope that I've shown you in terms of attracting readers, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to make your article free. There are lots of additional functionality and features that you can ensure your article benefits from. However, if making your article is free is something that you want to do, or indeed you may need to do, then there are several options available. First of all, there is Gold Open Access, where authors pay an article processing charge, or APC as it's known, to make their article freely available at the moment of publication. This could either be in a fully open access journal or as an option within regular subscription journals. And at Wiley, we call this online open, but again, many other publishers have that option and they may call it something a little bit different. Green open access is where authors deposit the version of their article that has been accepted by a journal into a repository, usually one based either at their institution or a disciplinary repository. In this case, the article can be made freely available within the repository after an embargo period, and that's usually 12 to 24 months for social science and humanities journals. So, to very briefly summarize some of the tips and some of the points that I've gone through, in order to make your article as discoverable as possible, think carefully about the title, keywords, and abstract to increase the search engine optimization and therefore its discoverability. Build your social media profile to talk about and share links to your work. Use tools such as ORCID and Kudos to help you. Draw in readers where you can with short summaries or video abstracts to explain your work. And remember to try and add value to your article by including links to data, code, and multimedia files. And then finally, consider open access options. So I hope that you'll be able to take away some tips from this session and you'll be able to put those into action and to good use. Conferences like this are a great place to meet publishers and indeed journal editors who can help you do all that you can to ensure that your research gets the best possible platform. So please do stay in touch and stop by the Wiley stand at the conference, which is located in the South Dining Hall with the other exhibits. Or you can email me, my email address is on the screen. And I just wanted to let you know that Karina Gervin, who is one of the editors of the British Educational Research Journal, will be hosting a Meet the Editor session at the Wiley stand this evening at 5:30 during the reception. So if you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask Karina as an editor of one of BERA's journals, then please do stop by and we'll be happy to try and help you in any way we can. So thank you very much for coming and for your time and attention. And if you have any questions at this point, then I'd be happy to try and answer them.